you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Where are you calling in from today?
I am calling in from my office, which is my car.
Nice.
So
Nice.
apologies for the insanity in the back there.
You're completely fine. You're completely fine.
Yeah,
So,
trying to juggle being a full-time teacher and running for office at the same time. So
how's that
it's an
going?
adventure.
How's that
It's going
going?
well. It's going really well. It's been super exciting and been we started knocking doors this weekend really safely, doing a lot of safety protocols to make sure that just keeping in mind the situation with COVID. But yeah, I've been reaching out to lots of voters and just been really enjoying getting to talk to people around the district for these past few months. And we've been doing events every Sunday, playing concerts in precincts around the district. And so, yeah, it's been a ton of fun. But also started teaching last week for my year 11.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Awesome.
yes, yes. So it's been the last couple weeks have been a wild ride.
I'm sure. So, where are you teaching and are you doing it in person? Is it some sort of hybrid?
I am teaching at Baltimore City College, the high school, and at City we're and this is public schools within Baltimore, so we're all doing a digital start right now.
Gotcha. How has that been? I
Yeah.
know I'm only seeing it from the student perspective and it's certainly a little weird, but how has that been going for you?
It's been good. I mean, we are trying to go with the. Oh, sorry, the car's making noises. Just trying to go with the punches, and so there's some parts that are really tough, which is that there are, and we knew this would happen, that there are many students that are not connecting. We know that in Baltimore, basically one in every two Black and Brown students don't have access to stable internet. And so that is the reality for many of our students. And so that means that they cannot connect, or if they can, it's for short periods of time, or they're trying to do their work just using their cell phones, which is not how we want our students to be doing their work. And so that part is hugely problematic, but I think students have really been pushing through, trying to do that the best that they can, and we've been trying to create a welcoming and exciting environment for them. So we have been having fun. I do feel very thankful that I'm a high school teacher, so and mostly teach juniors and seniors, so they are much more just like intellectually prepared to be able to do that kind of work. I really feel for the elementary students, the teachers, those parents. That is a tough moment to be trying to go through. Yeah.
Yeah, I have cousins that they're 13 and 14, so I'm not exactly sure what grade they're in, probably early middle school, early high school, and they're just my grandma's trying to help them and she can barely use the computer, let alone show them how to do it. And I know they're having some like synchronous stuff, some asynchronous stuff. So you said that like you one and two Black and brown students don't have access to the internet. How are you guys coping with that? How are you working around that?
Yeah. Well, we've been trying to do the best we can. There's two pieces. So one is the district has been trying to give a device per household, which is really different than other counties. So, for example, in Baltimore County versus Baltimore City, it's a 1-for-1 ratio when it comes to devices. So much better to being able to bring students online. In Baltimore, it's about one. They're trying to get to one per household. Emphasis on trying. They're still trying to get computers out to families and devices, and that's the result of decades of underfunding, and so we do not have the same capacity to make a sudden bulk purchase of tons of technology. So it's deeply problematic that we don't have the resources necessary to do that. And honestly, it's been a problem since before COVID. it's the 21st century, and students do a lot of their research online, and they use apps and videos to do study and work. They're sending back videos and doing things like that for assignments. They're meeting with students online. And those things are really difficult to do, whether COVID is happening or not, if you don't have stable internet and a device. So, it's also not just about like making it through this pandemic. It's about like allowing students to have the opportunity to really be 21st century students. So there's been some big issues around funding it, and it's one of the things that we're fighting here in the city, because in the city, we only give about 15% of our budget to schools, and the rest of the state has an average of 36% of what counties give to their schools. Quite the gap, yeah. So it does make sense for Baltimore that the state would take on a larger responsibility. We aren't going to expect Baltimore City to be paying the same as Montgomery County, that has a much wealthier tax base. But we do have to do like our duty and our right on the local level to make sure that we're really funding for kids. So that's a huge problem. So the school district has tried to do what they can do. Luckily, I teach at Baltimore City College High School. It's a public school within the city, but it has a incredible legacy, incredible alumni base. And so we've been trying to, be able to raise funds and be able to kind of supplement the amount of tech that's coming out of the school system, because we know that you cannot have a household with one device when maybe there's 2, 3, 4 siblings or cousins or what have you there. And so we've just been really trying to make sure that any student that's having technology issues, we get them a device, and also trying to connect them. Oh, no, I'm seeing some comments that thought I taught at a college. Yeah, Baltimore City College High School. I'm a high school teacher.
Interesting name.
Yeah, it's because like way back in its history, it offered sort of a type of college credit and kept that name, but that's like from over 100 years ago. But it is a high school, and a very famous high school in Baltimore City, part of a huge, one of the oldest public high school rivalries in the country, with Polytechnic High School. So yeah, but it's a great place to be. So we've been trying hard to keep our kids connected, but I definitely observe, what the numbers say, which is that our Black and brown students are having more issues with getting online, tech that doesn't work, mics that don't work, that are constantly logging in and out, like students that are, losing connection so often that they come in and out of the class session like 8 times in a period or more, so they're essentially missing half the class. So it's really tough, but we're trying to make the best that we can, because we know this is the way to keep kids safe.
That's definitely hard, and I feel like you're definitely bringing up a lot of the problems that are happening in the school system. Is that part of your campaign? I'm not exactly sure. I read that you were running for city council, but I don't really know, I guess, like the grounds of your running, or when the election is for that as well. Like, what does that timeline look like for you? And sort of what are some of the big things you're pushing?
Yeah, so that's definitely a big piece, which is making sure we're making our students a priority. So not just investing in schools, but also investing in rec centers. There's been a dramatic loss in rec centers, which for many kids is a home away from home. It's a place where they can learn and explore and really develop skills after school. And a lot of rec centers have been closed down or are in such disrepair that students don't want to be there. Similar to the schools, they lack air conditioning. Similar to the schools, many of them don't have functioning heat. So, and on top of that, they don't have the resources that students need that they want to be learning now, which often involves technology. And so by either being closed or not offering the basic needs for a student to feel like comfortable being in that space, they really aren't an option for kids. And there's so many people that I've talked to within the district that talked about how growing up, their rec center saved their life, changed their trajectory, taught them that they were passionate about something that they didn't know about. And so when we close those doors on kids, those have real life consequences for our students. So I think that's a big piece. Um, yeah. So that's one of the aspects of the platform for sure.
What made you decide that you wanted to go from teaching? I'm not sure if teaching was your original like path out of college. What made you decide to go from teaching into a position like that? That's a very, to me, it's a pretty distinct change.
Yeah, well, actually, it helps to have gone to Goucher. So I took advantage of one of the social justice grants when I was at Goucher. The social justice chair and grants had just been created at the time. Zeke Cohen was the SGA president, who's now a first district council person. And so I took advantage of those grants to teach a after school program over in Sandtown, Woodchester. At an elementary middle, sorry, called George Kelson, which no longer exists. It's been closed now. And then also taught at Curtis Bay. So I actually had not even thought that I wanted to be a teacher, like going back to that. I was thinking I was going to be going more into the field of cognitive science. And so, but that opportunity really showed me that I really enjoyed working with students, really enjoyed giving them the tools that they needed to just express their voice and their expertise and how powerful their voice was. They just needed some support and being able to, like fine tune that voice for, the different audiences that they wanted to target. So I really loved that experience, and that's what led me to teach. So I joined the program Teach for America and ended up going right into teaching after Goucher. So I went to Pennsylvania for a couple of years, starting my first teaching job there and also getting my master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania, and then have been teaching. But that whole period of time, I was always an organizer. So involved in my union. I tried to also unionize a charter school in Philadelphia, came to Baltimore, super excited to be a part of the Baltimore Teachers Union, joined the progressive caucus called Be More, and was which is a part of the union that's been fighting for making sure that we're having a social justice lens in the way we act as a union. So in addition to fighting for what workers deserve in terms of pay, in terms of benefits, also making sure that we're fighting for our kids and families. So I was a steering committee member of that progressive caucus. Then was super excited when they joined with another progressive caucus called SEED, forming the Union We Deserve, and they won a massive union election last year. And over the last 3 years, I've been an elected representative for my teachers at my school as a building representative. So I've always stayed organizing, and that's like on the teacher side. And I've also worked to try to give space to students so that they can organize themselves and lift up their voice. So trying to use my classroom as somewhere where students can really convene and discuss the things that are important to them. So in 2014, students started SOMOS, which is a group called Students Organizing a Multicultural Open Society, and they fight systemic inequity in Baltimore City schools. And they're amazing. They've been kicking a lot of butt this spring, really fighting to close that digital divide. We worked together to win $3 million from City Hall to close the digital divide. A lot of that went to purchasing devices, which is something else that kids often don't have. But the big target now is Comcast, because what we know is that you can have a device, but if you don't have internet that's functional, it's not really going to get you anywhere. So we've really been targeting Comcast, and the students wrote an incredible list of demands, which is to increase their speed so that their internet can be functional for working class families through this program that they have, Internet Essentials. So it's been amazing to see this student organization grow. In the last few months, they've been and they've been featured in the news before, but it's been a big fight. So they've been in the Washington Post and the Sun, interviewed by the New York Times, all around the incredible work that they've been doing. So it's been an exciting fight and struggle. And we actually have a huge national press conference coming up next week. So our students have been working to mobilize other cities. So we've brought in amazing organizers from Philadelphia, and they're super active. City Councilwoman Helen Gim, so she's going to be a part of this national press conference. We reached out to Detroit and their city council, a wonderful city councilwoman over there, Raquel Castaneda Lopez, organizers there. We've brought in folks from Chicago, from Baton Rouge, from San Jose, from LA. So we're going to have a national press conference demanding that Comcast do more now for our kids. Next week on the 23rd at 4 p.m. So folks should definitely stay tuned, because if we do not get adequate internet for our kids, they are not going to have the opportunity to have an education. Not during COVID and not after this pandemic. This is the 21st century. You need the internet to learn, period.
That sounds awesome. I'm glad that you've also included the kids in doing that. So it's not just like a bunch of grown-ups saying, we need this for our kids. They're actually themselves going, I want this education. We need this education. It seems like you've been really, really busy since you left Goucher, between like doing some really active things while you were there, as well as like since then. What did you, so you mentioned something about cognitive science. What did you study at Goucher while you were there?
Yeah, I had a major in psych with a minor in cognitive science. I thought I wanted to go like into neurology or neuroscience when I was there. And I also minored in Latin American studies. So I definitely will say that while I went into education, I use my psych background every day. So it's been very useful. But yeah, I had a major pivot. I had been thinking I wanted to go into doing research. And honestly, I'll say that, as a woman of color, I think that in a first generation college graduate, I felt like I was really carrying the torch for my family. So I felt that when because I got into college and I was going to be the first one to graduate, that I felt like I really needed to do something that was going to do justice to my family. So I felt like it had to be something that, like, in name sounded amazing. So I was like, yes, I want to study neuroscience, which again, I'm really curious about it, and it's a wonderful field. But it wasn't where my heart was, and I learned that like through being able to work with young people. And towards what you said, I hate it when people like talk about the needs of other people instead of just bringing them into the room to let folks voice their own voice. I think it's really important that the people who are most impacted by something should be the ones talking about it. And that's why it's been so important to have students at the center of this digital access crisis. And with anything else, right? If we're talking about minimum wage, like we need to be talking to minimum wage workers. If we're talking about a homelessness crisis, we need to be talking to people who are experiencing hopelessness or on the precipice of homelessness. Those are the folks that really understand what's going on because they're living it. And I think oftentimes we bring into the room so-called, like experts that have really studied something, but they haven't lived that life. The real experts are the people that have lived those moments and lived those struggles. And so that's definitely, the kind of organizing that I've tried to do during my 10-year career already as a teacher, and what I plan to continue doing as an organizer, and what I would hope to do as an elected official if we, win in November.
That's awesome. I feel like that's a really good plan to have and a great way to approach that. You said that you want to bring people like into the room and get them talking. That's sort of where we're at with you and helping our students, because you are the expert and the person that's gone from someone potentially in psychology, I had no idea that was your major, to doing teaching and now city council. That's such a big breadth of things to do. When you were at Goucher, what do you think, other than the program you mentioned previously, what do you think was the most influential to you in sort of helping you develop these skills that you're using day to day?
Wow. I loved my courses, my professors. They were huge role models for me of how you can, really go into the theory of what's going on and then making it applicable into real life. So the emphasis of trying to bring things into the community, doing real action, that was something that really is something that really inspired me from being at Goucher, and definitely the ability to, and this is something I say, I have a lot of students that have gone on to go study at Goucher, and I said, go out there and take everything you can, go out there and take every opportunity you can, because Goucher has so many opportunities to fund brilliant student ideas, whether it is about what your study abroad is going to look like, whether it's what your major is going to look like, whether it's about doing incredible projects, through social justice grants or, all the many other resources that exist on campus. And I think that was huge, which was that, like, I can be the nexus of the ideas. Like, I can be the person that sets the plan and puts things into motion. And I think that was something that, really allowed me to begin exploring what it meant to organize other people, to organize myself, and to see myself as someone that could be a creator. Yeah.
That's very cool. So you did mention some of the grants that do study abroad. Did you study abroad while you were at Goucher? I mean, I'm not sure exactly when the requirement came to be, but were
I
you able to study
did.
abroad?
Yeah, the requirement had come in, I think, right before I came to Goucher. So I started at Goucher in 2006, and I did not do a semester abroad. I was always too busy organizing on campus, so I didn't feel like I could leave for that long. But I did do one of the intensive courses abroad, and so shout out to Arlene Francois and Jeannie Murphy, both of whom I love dearly, and their incredible program, which is studying the movements of women in Uruguay and Argentina. It was an incredible experience, and just seeing, how women organized, fought, really challenged, incredibly repressive, dictatorships where there was violent repression and real danger for being someone to be activated and mobilized. I think can be an inspiration to everyone, which is that, we are free to be able to really like stand for the things that we believe in. We don't have to fear having intensive political, well, not always, right? We saw how things went this summer and how things have gone for many who have tried to be active in the streets and marching, and how things have been going in Portland. So maybe we're not that different. But in general, we have the capacity to really vocalize and stand up for the things that we believe in. So I think we have a duty to do that. And that's something that was really important for me to learn. I grew up in a household where my mom, when my mom and I left Peru to go meet with my father, who was, he's Peruvian as well, but he was already living in the United States, we were going through a civil war in Peru. So massive political repression that was taking place there due to a Marxist movement that was called the Shining Path. And so it's a very complicated political history, but my mother was very plugged in to, folks that would identify themselves as socialists and communists, and would actually allow one of her colleagues at her job, she was a secretary at the time, to use the work printer to be able to print socialist propaganda. And unfortunately, this person was tortured and abused because of the work that he had been doing, and my mom really feared that repression as well. She would tell me that she was really scared. That one of the things that would really freak her out was that she thought that someone would take her nails off and try to torture her and get her to speak by taking off her nails. because that's what she had seen had happened, right? And so when before going to Goucher, she was really frightened, frightened about me being a political person, frightened that I would share with people my political ideology, because she felt like there was really danger. And so it was wonderful for me to go to Goucher and to have the opportunity to really open up politically, and begin to feel like there was a very safe space to be politically expressive. And I think that's something that so many immigrant students experience, because we have parents that have really grown up in repressive regimes. And so they feel, very bound about allowing themselves to be open politically. So, Goucher really offered me a sanctuary to get in touch with, my political core.
That's awesome. I'm really glad that you had that opportunity at Goucher. And also, you mentioned that you were really active organizing on Goucher's campus. What groups were you a part of?
Say that again and cut off for a second.
Oh, oh, I was just asking what groups you were a part of at Goucher. You mentioned you were really active in organizing.
Yeah, so shout out to Ola. I know that they're still active. So I was a member of Ola. I'm trying to remember what the acronym is now, but it was like Hispanics Learning Awareness. I'm blanking on the O for the moment. I was also a member of the SGA, so I was social justice chair for a period of time, and involved in some other different organizations. I also really loved being in the Hillel. I'm not Jewish, but I felt very embraced. I even went on a trip to New Orleans with on a Hillel trip and things like that. So I definitely got to explore a lot of student groups, and but those are some prominent ones that I can think of for now. But yeah, I really enjoyed my time in within student government, and trying to activate. During the time, I do remember this was a big moment for DACA. So this was when there was a huge fight happening around DACA. So I had been connected. I want to say it was through the career office. I got connected with Casa de Maryland. And so very early on within my freshman year, I started volunteering and knocking doors and all that with Casa de Maryland, which is, for those of you who are not aware of that organization, it's an amazing workers' rights, immigrant rights organization that does really tough job of essentially trying to create almost like union benefits and structures for a workforce that's deeply difficult to unionize, right? Trying to create a worker center where there is a minimum wage, a higher wage than for skilled labor, certain protections and things like that, and then have been doing a lot to advocate for the immigrant community, and also around police brutality in Baltimore City, something that deeply affects our Black and Brown community in the city. And so I got plugged in with them and was really active with CASA during my time period at Goucher. But I believe it was Goucher that actually connected with them to begin with. I also was always working. So when I was at Goucher, I think I always had about 3 jobs. I worked before, I think it's closed now, but I used to work at the Starbucks that was in the Towson Circle. I worked as a bartender, worked as a secretary for an artist. I always had like a million little jobs. Worked at Casa as a paid staff member. So lots of stuff. Yeah. So
That's
that kept me
awesome.
pretty entertained too.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been just busy since you started at Goucher and you've really kept it through. And a lot of the things it sounds like you've done at Goucher really prepared you for what you're doing now and running for city council. And we're really glad that you could share those experiences with our students and help them see like that there's a bunch of different paths you can take to get to where you want to go. And maybe it's not always right in the beginning. And you sort of learn more about yourself as part of these organizations and part of the jobs that you work. And that sounds really great. I'm really glad you had those connections and those experiences.
Yeah, no, it was definitely. I feel so blessed that I went to Goucher, and I remember my very first day that I was there. It was a beautiful day. I'd gone with my mom, and it was I want to say it was springtime, so we were getting to check it out, and I just absolutely fell in love with the campus, and I'm so grateful because I came from New Jersey, so it introduced me to Baltimore, and all the amazing work and struggle that is happening in Baltimore City. And so I'm super thankful that Goucher came into my path and really helped me you know anchor myself and really see myself as an intellectual force, especially after I grew up in I initially grew up in a very, very Latinx neighborhood, which was a lot of Peruvians. It's like the highest concentration of Peruvians outside of Peru. But then I moved to my parents worked really hard to try to get me to a place where I would have access to better public school education. So my parents worked super hard, working double shifts, struggling to pay bills, to not get evicted, so that we could live in a neighborhood just a few miles away that had a much stronger public school system. But while I was there, it was I all of a sudden went from being in a majority like Black and Latino and Muslim community to being in a very white community, and so that came with a lot of racism, a lot of biases that would come from the adults and students that I would interact with. A lot of marginalization, and so coming to Goucher was really, there's this beautiful Junot Diaz quote, which Junot Diaz has had some very important allegations made against him. So don't want to shout him out too much, but he talks about going to college, and it was like being given an orange when he felt like he had scurvy, right? So, and that was definitely the opinion that it's how I felt when I got to Goucher. I felt like I finally got to be treated like an intellectual human being, and really had the opportunity to express myself as a woman, as an artist. It's where I started writing poetry. I'm a musician now, when I'm not teaching or organizing. And so, so I really thank Goucher for creating that intellectual space for me.
That's awesome. I'm really, really glad that Goucher was able to be that space for you and allow you to really grow into the intellectual and the organizer that you already were. You just needed to be able to break out of that shell. And I'm glad that Goucher allowed you to do that. And I'm really, really glad that we have you here today to talk about it.
Thank you.
But yeah, I don't want to keep you too long because I know we did go over time, but thanks again for coming today and speaking with me, and definitely keep an eye out for an email from me at some point, probably today or tomorrow, just to follow this up real quick.
Thank you. Yes, and I was just looking at the chat. So thank you for everybody who joined. So I see my favorite doctor, Dr. Smith. Hey, thanks for being here. Good Red Arrow, which does incredible work promoting Black-owned businesses in the community. So hey, shout out to Red Arrow. Good to see you here. One of my favorite bands, Womb World. So seeing lots of wonderful people checking out and stopping by. So thank you all for checking out this conversation, and thank you for having me on. I'm glad to be able to talk about one of my favorite places.
Thank you. Have such a good day.
Thank you.